In the space of education, EdTech is a burning term. Everyone's talking about it, and in the Indian startup ecosystem, EdTech companies are just dominating. But the question rises that whether these EdTech companies are actually solving the problem of the Indian education system. Well, in this particular episode of The Real Talk Show, I have with me someone who has been working in the space of education from a very long time and who has been trying to change and revolutionize the education system by creating and developing a culture of experiential learning. She is Tejasvi Bongirwar, co-founder of Luma World. And in this particular episode of The Real Talk Show, she talks about her story of starting her own venture, her thoughts over the Indian education system, and how actually the EdTech startups are solving the problem that the Indian education system is facing. This is an education-centric podcast. You can also listen to the audio version of this podcast on Spotify. Now, here's Tejasvi Bongirwar on The Real Talk Show. Welcome, Tejasvi, to the Real Talk Show. And finally, we are doing this after a lot of efforts. So kudos to
I
that.
know. Thanks so much. And thanks for being so patient and waiting for me. Really appreciate that, Pachagra.
Not a problem. Not a problem. So just to begin the conversation, how you have been and how has been the entire lockdown for you?
I think it's been fine. Of course, in the start, it was a very different, system we had to get accustomed to, either at personal front or at professional front. But I think that's what human is. It adjusts to the change and it makes its way. So, of course, there have been ups and downs on personal as well as work. But it's been fine. In fact, as my company also initially, though there were a lot of roadblocks or, because of pandemic, everything changed last year. But soon it became like an opportunity for us. So I guess, it's been fine. It's been good. I don't think I have any complaints. And I'm just looking forward for a better future for everybody, actually. What about
Great.
you? I hope everybody is great
Yeah,
at your end.
everybody's been great. And yeah, it has been a good lockdown for me. A couple of achievements, couple of new things coming up. So yeah,
Yeah, it's always new. I think that's the good
exactly.
part of it.
And as humans, we need to be open to changes. Otherwise,
100%.
it's always a survival of the fittest, and we have to be
Yeah,
on the mark.
that's true. That's true.
This might sound you a bit fancy because everyone's talking about discovering themselves in this entire period of lockdown. But as a matter of fact, it's been there that people have tried to understand things and try to visualize things, try to perceive things in a bit different manner, in a bit different
Yeah,
patterns.
yeah, yeah.
Any sort of learnings for you that you had encountered in this period, or any sort of self discoveries for you which you thought that, okay, this thing was in me but I hadn't figured out before?
On a personal front, and both, I'll tell you on both the sides. On a personal front, one of my parents is actually undergoing her cancer treatment.
Okay.
So, I am taking her treatment, also consulting in Japan. So I faced a big issue when the pandemic happened because it was like almost starting from scratch and trying to figure out new ways of treatment for her, or, trying to even figure out how to make her, how to take her there. So that's when I realized that, you can't take everything for granted. And probably it made me a more stronger person, quicker decision making, kind of also being able to gather my strength together and not, lose faith. So I guess those things is when those things happen to you when you're challenged. And, on that was one of the biggest things. And I could, thankfully, with God's grace, I could actually overcome that challenge and stressful situation and take her to Japan and get her the treatment. So that is something which I feel it helped me grow as a person and made me more stronger than I thought I could be. That was the good part. On the work front, about my company, I had launched just 1 year before, and it was my last year was actually the first year where we would go all out with all our products. And traditionally, if you have heard about Luma World, we create board games. We actually combine the world of education with games to make academics and learning fun for children. So traditionally, all games and toys in India are bought through offline channels. With all the manufacturing getting shut, the stores getting shut, it became like a situation where I'm starting from scratch again. But we quickly modularized the product. We quickly, got learned the digital way of sales, got my team on par. So I realized that such situations will happen all the time. And we just need to be finding solutions, not thinking of a problem or thinking that, oh my God, I'm making so many business loss, or, 1 month or 2 months, no sales has happened. But that's okay. That is just a temporary phase. But in the long run, and it is good for you. And when you retrospect again, probably that learning was so essential for now growing my business today. So I guess on both sides, I think the challenging environment has actually made me grow as a person, and also made me a more capable leader to lead my team in the right way. So I think those are the good things I feel.
Great, great. Before we discuss about what you do and about the education systems, I would like to figure out and try to understand from you, how was your childhood? Because I wish to understand the reason behind working for such a purpose. It has to be something with your experiences, and it has to be something which you must have encountered somewhere down the line in your past. So that's why, how was your childhood, and what actually made you so proactive in working on the front of education and trying to revolutionize and change things from how they have been working since years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm really happy that you asked, because all of us, our foundation comes from the way we have been brought up in our childhood. Our school, our teachers, our parents, our friends, family, everybody has some kind of impact. If you see from my childhood, I've actually been good at studies, but when now I realize that something, and I got great marks, I got through great college, I did my engineering, did my MBA, like a beautiful path in career. I've really actually had that. But when I started working on the education front, and I started working and doing research for my company, I realized that that was a lot of rote learning. I got marks, but that was super rote learning, and I must have excelled as compared to my other peers. But in the end, my logical thinking or application building was almost zero. Like I couldn't even solve puzzles, which I thought were very simple, but that was an eye opener for me. Then, when I did a research, I just felt that the education system, which was during my time or even my parents' time, has not really changed. And that got me thinking. Then, along with my three co founders, who also were equally passionate about education, and two of them already had one EdTech startup before that. So they were already working on, different concepts, not really education like primary education, but in the education segment. So when I shared this need, which I felt was a gray area, at least in India, they were also very passionate and enthusiastic of the idea. And we started researching more and figuring out that, is it that it's just an assumption of ours, or is it something which is standard across everybody? So whether we spoke to children, we spoke to parents, we spoke to educators, school, we realized that the problems are so many and the solutions are so scant. And that's when Luma World was born. So I feel that as a child, I was great in my education. My parents played a great role, because my father was, a person who used to tell me to read newspapers. He used to tell me about the current affairs, talk to me about things, tell me about how important it is. But it was not just academic; it was skill development as well. Like talk to me about networking, connecting, communicating, building my confidence, telling me to go all the way, take leadership position, extracurricular activities. My mother equally was very enthusiastic about every subject. So I guess touch wood, but my parents had kind of given me a holistic development, which I felt was missing today. And still, if I talk to parents, they, and I tell them about these concepts or anything, they say, oh, it's great, but is it going to get them marks? Are they going to get college admissions, or they're going to get jobs? So that's when I stop and realize that still the mentality is, the FOMO is just a competitive war. It's a rat race. And schools have become more like an industry or a business where, or coaching classes for that sake is more for, how do you get marks during a summative assessment, rather than thinking that are they actually learning on the go? Are you providing right diagnosis for the real issues? Like, for example, when we were testing with children, the child struggled in division, or it was a word problem, and the child struggled in solving that question. And when I gave him a division sum, he could do it. So I realized it's not actually that he does not understand the concept of division. It was he couldn't read the math language. He couldn't comprehend the word problem. So where are we actually diagnosing these issues? We are not doing that. So that's when we realized that today, at least in India, they try to fit all the children in a standard size without realizing that different learners have different way of learning. Some are visual learners, audio, nature learning. Someone only learn through, listening, whether the teacher is talking or a parent is talking. Some do from reading, writing, some do from practicing. So it is our responsibility to provide them multiple format to choose from and provide different solutions where child can then choose what suits him the best. Because end of the day, the child has to learn. But if it is force-fed, then it will be like something like rote learning where he will not even remember after years that what actually the child has learned.
Great. Before we actually discuss a very critical topic, and that's been talked about from past few years, there's been criticism around it, the flaws of Indian education system.
Yeah.
Though our new education policy tries to change something for the better, but still it's around there.
Yes.
What if you had to point out some of the good contributions, if not the great, some of the good contributions that Indian education system has given, what could it be?
See, I feel that though having said that there are a lot of issues, of course, there are always the pros and the good things which also our country, our government has done. One of which I will mention is the national education policy, which they launched in 2020. And the entire idea was that in the next 10 years, the entire gross enrollment ratio of children, going to schools or colleges should be 100%, which means that they are thinking on the right way. And this is a policy for the 21st century, though it has been time, but now they have started thinking that about, how to give universal access to education, how to make it inclusive in nature, focusing on early childhood, not just academic marks, but an overall skill development, creating life skills, collaboration, teamwork, resilience, focusing on vocational education now in school. Also giving a lot of emphasis on multilingualism or regional languages. So they've also kind of made it more easier that the medium of instruction becomes your mother tongue, so that no child feels demotivated. That okay, I don't understand what's happening, and even the teachers are actually more confident in delivering what they are doing, and that's the whole idea. So I feel, and also use of technology, purposeful use of technology, at the right way. So there are a lot of efforts, and the best part is I think they're creating a national mission, a committee for getting foundational numeracy and literacy, in place. So I feel there are really great intent, a lot of good points in the policy, and a lot of initiatives have been taken. So now there are a lot of schools who actually, even though the policy was not there, but some of the schools have already started taking action towards application-based learning, more of skill development, more experiential learning. Also, for special need children, initially it was like a taboo if you are the special need children, and you are you're not inclusive. But a lot of not just schools, but there are a lot of companies also who have come up to focus on this issue, provide them resources, and not just the typical resources, which makes them feel more left out, and kind of also focusing on the infrastructure, which can help. Of course, we have a long way to go, long way to learn, but it's a good start. And I would say that at least it's a great support, because of which it also encourages us towards our goal, because we know that our country is aligned towards a better education system for for the entire country.
Exactly. Like you said, that there are a lot of elements that have been added to the new education policy, be it improving it through collaborations, experiential learning, and so on and so forth. This is one thing which I really want to focus about, and that's collaboration part. How does collaborations play an important and a very crucial, because I personally feel they do play a very crucial role when you are trying to learn something, or when you are trying to educate yourself in anything. So how does collaborations actually play a very crucial part in building a very, very interactive and engaging education environment?
I think it's again a great question, because I really believe collaboration is highly important. Let's take an example of a job front. There is no work or a task which we actually do in isolation. We are dependent on someone else. We are doing it in teamwork. So, what is
Exactly.
teamwork? It's a collaboration, it's a collaborative activity. If you actually land up doing, it's not that we are expert in everything. Someone else is expert in something. We have different strengths and weaknesses. The idea is to combine all those strengths together towards a single goal. And not just you are productively using your time, effectively achieving those results, timely, also you're achieving. And as a team, you rise. You move forward not as an individual, but you're taking the team along with you. Same is the case in college. When we get projects, we don't do always projects alone. Someone is great in researching, someone is great in delivering, someone is great in conceptualizing or understanding, the topics or how it should be broken. And then we come up with a presentation or develop a project, right? That's also collaboration. So why not inculcate in children from the start? And what we have observed that, when they are actually playing, what are they doing? They're collaborating. They're teaching each other. Like, I may be poor in some topic or, and I'm scared to ask my teacher or my parent because of the fear that, okay, they'll shout at me or they may think that, oh my God, you don't even know this. It's a fear of judgment. But when you're asking a friend or a friend is helping, that's a peer-to-peer learning or buddy learning, which happens. So that happens very naturally because children do teach each other and they learn from each other. So that's a natural way of learning for them. So when you're giving them a platform for collaboration, so learning happens naturally. And you are not really instructionalizing learning. I think that is the beauty of collaboration.
Wow.
And as a whole, you come together.
Beautiful. One thing which I personally wanted to ask you about Luma World personally. What was the thought when you started with Luma World? What was the thought that you had to focus on this particular section of students or maybe kids, a very specific section of students who are just beginning their journey, a lifelong journey of learning? So what was the thought of just focusing on this particular segment and starting something focusing on this particular segment?
Got it. As you know, we focus on the primary education and now we're moving also towards early education. The main reason we felt was that's the foundational age. If that is the time we are able to induce the conceptual understanding, the application building, at that moment, then the rest of the years fall naturally. And then they don't have to really put an effort because then marks or your exams or scores are actually an outcome. It is not the objective. So we felt that this is the age where we need to create an impact. And that's how we thought that, since it's a very raw age, and the children need to be guided. That's why we focused on that particular age. The other thing is we started with maths. So from the academic perspective, maths, but all our games. So we are into creating board games, educational board games, application books, flashcards, kits, and everything. So what we realized that maths has a fear itself. Children either hate it or they love it. And that's one of the biggest reasons for even dropouts in schools. So, we wanted to propagate maths as a life skill rather than a subject. And how do we do that? Maths is something which we need every day, even for shopping or doing our, normal calculations. Everything is math.
Exactly.
And if we stop thinking of it as a topic and start practicing it as a skill, it becomes subliminal learning. So that's the reason we thought that, we need to focus on maths from academic perspective as well as focus on skill development, because right now the child's overall skill development, mainly real life skills, your communication skill, your decision making skills, your critical thinking, problem solving, those are highly important. And the other aspect was moral values, because we knew that a lot of parents were struggling with teaching values to their child, like something like letting them fail, telling them it's okay to fail, be honest, be fair, be patient. So these are certain things which you want to teach your child, but you don't know how to. So what are the two? So when we combine all the three skills, academic skills, life skills, and your moral values, we realize a game or a board game is the best way to teach it. Like, because when you're actually playing a board game, you are doing decision making every step. You're doing problem solving every step. Okay, math is just supplementary, it's just a supplemental learning. You don't even know you're doing math. And in terms of values, you are being patient. You lose, you want to re-strategize, play again. You want to, learn from your, friends, how have they actually cracked it. or how did they do it, So those we felt that play and games was so natural to a child that we felt this is the best method to teach a child any math concept or make him, practice or apply. So that was our start. That's how we actually, I would say, that came down or narrowed down on board games being or gamifying, game-based solution being the way to go to, improve your learning or reform the learning.
Great, great. Now moving on to something which we have been listening about a lot these days, and it's quite famous in the Indian startup ecosystem, the EdTech startups that are ruling the Indian startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
And this is personally my opinion. I feel that the way some of the EdTech startups, the way they try to sell their courses by pursuing people through the element of fear, that is something which I personally hate it. To be as blunt, I personally hate it. And one more thing, I don't find it as an alternative to bring a change in the current education system that we are having.
Yeah.
I wish to know your opinions over this. Is the methodology that some of the organizations in the EdTech startups follow are actually solving the problems of Indian education system that we are facing right now?
So let me answer it in two parts. One is that when we say reforming education system, it does not mean we want to just change everything.
Exactly.
We also, as a company, want to complement what is existing, provide them with additional plug and play tools, basically expand the horizon. Like suppose today they're having smart class, they're having technology, they're having blackboard methods. That's great. You have some formats already in place. We are just adding more formats. So that was the idea, that we want to create a buffet of formats for children. So that's the aim. So we don't want to challenge anybody. Rather, we want to work with what is existing, because we, as I said, I do believe there are a lot of good points and the cons can be worked with additional resources like the company I have started, or some other people have started great companies. So I would say that the objective or the goals are not wrong for different lot of edtech startup. Like they do want to bring about a change. Like for example, any online classes or online courses, they are basically introducing a video method of teaching or an audio method of teaching or a digital way of teaching. So which is also another format which is added to the ecosystem. So the objective is good. What is happening, I feel personally, and I agree with you, is the way the sales happen. Because it's like, it's a fear of missing out, FOMO. And they are playing on the rationale of parents. But that's not just for sales of any edtech startup or any product. If you see in schools also, you want to get your child in the best school. Why? Because you feel that if he's not in that school, he will be left out and he won't, he won't get admission in the best of college. So it is the mentality and that is the mentality of our, maybe, parents over here at the moment. Because of which the startup position themselves or they use that as a sales strategy. So we may say it's right or wrong, but that is basically working for them from the sales perspective, because that's the language maybe the parents understand. And it is true, because if I talk about skill development all the time, there are some niche parents who really understand, who value that, and they connect with me. Rest, if I say that, okay, now this product is 600 rupees and now it's at 400 rupees, they immediately buy. So I've realized that, some of them don't really care that whether it is what benefits the child is getting. It's just that the child should have it, more than that. And now that it's more affordable than before, I'll just, get it for my child. So there are different, I would say, personalities or personas of the TG market, which the, the companies try to play, or the schools or whoever they try to play. But if you go globally, some of them behave similarly, or they may behave totally different. Because like in US, or you go to European countries like Finland and all, for me, it was much more easier to explain this concept, like learning through play, skill development, because they were already, the market is mature. They already understand the value of such product. So I didn't need to, put down that, if your child doesn't do it, it is something he's missing out on. Or, your child will be left behind. So I feel it is just a question of some maturity and development in the market to come. And I can see the trend towards, the parents thinking towards the overall development rather than just having an additional resources because everybody has it. And it is because of that. So every time you'll see the marketing strategies will keep changing with how the TG is actually behaving or how the personalities have evolved. Like we becoming parents next, we will think differently from our parents or the
Exactly.
generation before. It is just the way of sales and marketing, but I feel the goal and objectives are not wrong. As long as they may get sales and they may get progress in the shorter span, but in the end, if the child is not benefited, the parent will never continue. So, it is just a first purchase, but later they have to have a great experience to get a repeat purchase or retain that customer. So it's not so easy. Still, I feel that, the companies are trying their best so that they give them an additional resource to learn from.
Got it. Also, you mentioned one point, products like your product, for say, board games for kids, they are more understood in Western countries, European countries, and the concept is quite new for our country. And
Right.
that's why parents don't understand the value
Yeah.
that such thing would be giving to their child.
True, true.
What do you feel? Where does the thought process of parents in our country and the thought process of parents in Western country or European countries differ on this particular note, where you have observed that parents are reacting in quite different manner over a similar product?
See, I feel it's about exposure.
Okay.
I wouldn't say that's a different, complete thought process. It's about time and exposure. Maybe some things over there, like for example, experiential learning or activity-based learning, or in Montessori way, was much old in US. It may be a new concept in India for last some 4 5 years or maybe 10 years, but it has been for ages over there. So the exposure to such resources has been already there, and so they have evolved. With us it's not about that they are very rigid or stubborn about what has been happening, and they think that is the only way or right, or they have some conflicts from a religious perspective or some other perspective, that they're not constrained that way. It is just about time, and that exposure has not been given. I realized that initially when I tell them, oh, board game can be used to teach and learn, they say, oh, this is rubbish. How can a game is only for fun? That is your presumption. As well as they think of it as an expense rather than an investment for the child's future. But when they actually play, so they say, and a lot of times, when we used to do events or we used to have a testing phase, the children used to sit, they were very excited because end of the day, it's a game. And parents used to stand and see. Then I used to tell them that, no, you also sit, because this is about bonding with your child also. It's a great way for you also to be involved in your child's education and having those fun nights at home without thinking that the child is learning as well as enjoying. So they said, no, this is all child's thing. But when they actually started playing, I felt they were more engrossed than the children also. Sometimes the children finished and they were almost on the next game and they were again playing. And in summary, they used to tell me that, oh, we never thought these games could be used. Or this is great. And they used to purchase from me, or they used to ask, they used to help me even propagate in their mother communities or father communities, talk, also introduce me to their schools. They say, please, can you talk to our school and introduce this in our library or in extracurricular activities? That's when we realize that it's not about that they are not accepting. It's just about them not knowing. And once they know that such a thing exists and it is beneficial for the child, they're more than happy to, welcome it with your warm heart. It's just about creating awareness and educating the market. And once I would say it's a challenge for my category as such, like board game as a category as such. There are also a lot of beautiful strategy-based game made by Indian companies over here. But we will still purchase which has come from US. So we'll think that, oh, these board games are, like great, like Catan and all of them. But there are many games which are produced by Indian communities also. So as a board game community, as I am also part of a board game community, we try to, as a team, propagate board games in India. So it has kind of helped us because it's a challenge we all are facing together. I may be in educational, someone else is making just adult board games, someone else is making serious board games or strategy-based board games. But end of the day, the category as such is very new, for the Indian country.
Right.
So I just think it's about time, which slowly the market will realize that these are some important things, which a child, not just children but adults, will also enjoy as well, and it will be at all homes, frankly. Then.
Right. Talking about the EdTech part, as I told you, my take on the EdTech startups, some of the EdTech startups at least. Do you people at Luma World consider yourself a typical EdTech startup? Because whatever I have read about you through the pages, LinkedIn pages, and all those stuffs, I found that you are trying to bring a change in the education system, but your methodologies are completely different.
Yeah,
And
you're
it's
absolutely right.
not something which is typically an edtech startup. So that's why I'm asking, do you people consider yourself typical edtech startup, or how do you go about in introducing yourself? What's the line of introduction that you people give?
Okay. So when we say, we don't say that, of course, we are in the education segment, and we are not against technology. We just believe that it should be purposefully used, because the child should not, like, anyways, due to pandemic, the screen time has increased so much that, it is having, mental impact, physical impact, every kind of impact. So we just want the technology to be used smartly. So we also believe in a hybrid system where it is a great integration of digital ways and physical ways, physical for doing and learning, and digital to help tracking progress, adaptive learning, kind of those things. So we also are working on the technology platform, but that is more from creating something like a virtual escape room, or mind puzzles, which is focusing on skill development and logical thinking rather than teaching concepts. I'm not, I don't want to become a school, or I don't want to become a course, because that's already existing. I want to help them apply those skills, apply those concepts in your real life, get them closer to what is going to happen in reality. So we believe in, that aspect. So when we introduce ourselves, we actually say we're an experience design company for children who focuses on early and primary education or skill development through game-based innovation. Now, the game-based innovations can be in form of board games, card games. It can also be gamifying books. It can also be gamifying flashcards. It can also be gamifying and creating digital, modules, because that's also creating a game.
Right.
So, we actually introduce ourselves that way, rather than saying that we're an edtech company or we're an education company. We say it's a more experience design company, which is child centric. The focus is the child, and
Right.
everything, creating an entire ecosystem for the overall skill development.
Right. As you have previously told, you people also work on holistic development through experiential learning. I want to know this. How do you envision this concept of experiential learning? Because I personally feel this. That's why I'm asking that the concept of experiential learning is something which is actually going to open a lot of doors, a new doors for learning perspectives. Because when we learn from experiences, be it from people, be it from incidents, it's something which gets imprinted in our minds. It's something which
100%.
it's something which we relate to a very personal level. And that's why I believe that experiential learning is next level of taking
The
learning
best way.
ecosystem's. So
Yeah,
how do
perfect.
you
Perfect.
think, what do you think about this?
So see, I completely agree with you, because experiential learning at any phase of our life is
Exactly.
the best way of learning. It is learning by what you say on the job training is. It is also experiential learning.
Exactly.
You are basically putting the person already in the job and telling him that, okay, now on the go, learn from your managers, learn from your peers, learn from your clients, learn from your stakeholders, learn from your products, right? So that is like an experiential learning. So in life, what we are doing is actually experiential learning. What we felt that this concept of experiential learning is difficult to introduce to a child. We don't know how to give them experience, because they are so protective environment, only school, home, few people they meet, few friends. How do you give them that experience?
Exactly.
So that's the reason why we came up with. So I'm not saying that it should only be indoor games. We also probably, though I am not into physical games or outdoor games, but I feel that that's also experiential learning. When
Right.
you go to adventures, you do camping, you go out for trekking with your friends, or
Right.
any normal, even normal football or any game you play on the field, you're actually learning. You're learning by
Right.
experience. Now, it's not like academic learning. Of course, that's also academic learning, because I have a friend, or one of the other co-founder is a base jumper, and he's
Okay.
actually given a lot of TED talks on experiential learning, because when he jumps off a cliff, what matters to him is physics. If his physics go wrong, actually, he can
Exactly.
land up having another challenge, during the entire jump. So actually connecting your real life with that activity, and not thinking of it as separate. So when we try to, like, for example, we create books with the themes are for a third-year-old, for a third standard, we make that you are visiting a a dinosaur museum. So it is a fictitious book, but what happens in that? You start with buying tickets to the museum, then you figure out which trail you want to take. That is how we've created a book, application book. So it's a
Right.
story book where the child is following a pattern, which tomorrow if he goes to a museum, he's actually going to do that. And that time he'll think through, things like, okay, you have two type of tickets, whether you will buy individual tickets or you will buy a family ticket, what will save money. So those kinds of learning. So what you're doing is
Wow.
you're actually doing saving, you're calculating the same thing, but
Cool.
the way of doing is different. So you're taking them through life experiences. Also, we try to
Right.
put, actual facts about dinosaurs there, their weight,
Right.
what food do they eat, so that tomorrow the did you knows and the knowledge, general knowledge also increases. So
Right.
that's how in a smaller way we try to bring the real life experience into books. Same way
Right.
into games. In games, maybe I wouldn't say that you can get a theme into it, even though it's a fictitious thing, but what they're doing is problem solving, right? They're doing
Right.
strategy. And strategy or problem solving or decision making is also experiential learning. Because you
Right.
see why the person took a decision like that. Why did he not move his peg from year to year? Let me think about it. And that's through experience, through the other person's experience, through your parent, he's seeing, observing the parent, observing a teacher, or observing a friend. Why did he make that move? He lost
Right.
in this and I won. But why did he do that? So you're learning from each other's experience. So what we thought that we made a lot of games which are open card games. So they're not just solving for themselves, but they're also solving for the whole group, or the whole, all the 4 or 5 players who are playing. So they're learning from
Right.
each other. So it was our way of teaching or introducing experiential learning to children at that age. So that's how we thought that games, books, which come naturally to them, we use that as an extension to introduce such concepts of hands-on learning or experiential learning.
Right. Wow. Just a last one for this podcast. Like, what message would you give, or rather than a message, what would you suggest on your part that people, especially parents, especially teenagers, parents who have developed some sense of thinking and using their reasoning and logics, what would you deliver on your part that how these people should think and take education system and not just limiting it to a method of rote learning? How should
Yeah.
an education system be taken to develop yourself into a complete personality, which is obviously having hard skills, which could be used to
Yeah.
earn money, a person who is also having soft skills, which is very important for the communication purposes. Then
Right.
they are
Right.
having life skills, which is again a very important skill to have, at least today's world. So
Yeah.
how should, according to you, how should the education system should be taken rather than just focusing on the rote learning part?
So I think a lot of points you only have summarized for me, which is great because I like the way you're thinking, and I'm really happy that when the youth or even and kids think like that, because that shows that we are able to create a pool of future thinkers or critical
Hmm.
thinkers. So I would say that something which I would like all parents to feel that let the child be. Point number one,
Hmm.
understand what the child is comfort is. Don't force feed, just like we don't say that, okay, if you don't like eating apple, don't eat apple. It's fine, it's okay
Hmm.
to not eat apple. There are a lot of other things you can actually give the child for nutrition. Same way is education. Why? Just because suppose he's not able to score in a particular subject, let it be. You
Hmm.
focus on the overall development, figure out what is working for it. So someone may be like outdoor person, or
Hmm.
someone wants to be a chef. Now he may think that, oh, geography is not important for me, history is not important to me, so I don't want to be forced into it. So it's
Hmm.
okay, you let the child be, because the moment you give the child a freedom to select his educational path, or you create a personalized learning path for the child will blossom and the child
Hmm.
will figure its way. Because what you are doing is showing trust, you're showing
Right.
confidence in the child that you can achieve. You just have to
Right.
figure out what works for you. That is the most important. And I actually wanted to mention that, some of the best education system, like in Finland or in Japan, they give those freedom to the children. It's not just about free education what they provide, but they actually focus on providing freedom of choice. Choose your subject, choose your learning style, choose your schedule of learning. Also in Japan, when when I spoke to some educators, they told me that they also help them, and they actually make them ready for earthquakes. They make them ready for natural disaster, because the country as a whole faces that.
Exactly.
They also teach them that, okay, in school they have to clean their own boxes or clean their tables, which means those are also life skills. Life skill does not mean only logical thinking. Those are also
Exactly.
life skills. And same way in Finland also, they let the children be. They let them choose at the early education. Their entire aim is to just provide a big platform, provide a beautiful ecosystem where the child can grow. So I feel those are good things which we can take from some other countries. Those
Right.
are good things which we can inculcate in our children. So I just feel like,
Right.
in summary, let the child be, and the child will tell you what works for them. And you should just go with, like, it's just like how we say a gut feeling or an instinct. Everybody has it, and
Exactly.
everybody knows what works for them. So you have to just work with it, and rather than standardize, compartmentalizing them into you have to do this, or you have to get this job, or you have to get this career,
Right.
or you have to become a doctor, or those things. I think
Right.
it's just time that let them flourish by themselves.
Right. Well, this conversation was really awesome. I hope you find it worth
I
talking.
had it.
So,
100%. I had a great time talking, and thank you so much, because it's a great way to actually connect. And I
exactly.
also got to learn so much from you, your thought process, and go back so with so much learning to share it with my team. So thank you for this opportunity as well.
It's completely our pleasure. Thanks a lot, Tejasvi, once again for taking out
You're
the time.
welcome.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Thanks a lot.